Hello LEGO fans, it's JANG here from JANGbricks.com with a look at the new Summer 2014 LEGO Star Wars Imperial Star Destroyer. The set comes with 1,359 pieces. Let's start off looking at this thing from some different angles. The size of it is over 20 inches in length, and it's a fairly solid build actually. Fairly heavy, feels weighty, feels massive. Feels well constructed too. Has a pretty solid skeleton to it. Uses a lot of Technic pieces, mostly Technic bricks, and a lot of different sorts of connection points inside of it. Looks very strange when you're initially putting it together, but the good news is that the end result is excellent. I think this thing really looks great from every angle, every single angle. And they've really put a lot of thought into where they've put what pieces, even down to the color choices down in here that just give you a little bit of extra hint of the appropriate texture. You know, this is kind of an inside area that's not, I don't think it's intended to be looked at all that much, but they definitely put some serious time into it and some serious effort into designing that area. All this raised area here is really important. A lot of folks oftentimes won't look at that as being a major feature of the Star Destroyer design, but it actually is quite critical. They got these, I mean, look at that, right down the middle. That's just beautiful the way that works, and it'll make even more sense and be even nicer when you see how this whole thing opens up. It does have a couple of action features to it. First of all, you've got the spring-loaded, newer style missiles here on the sides, which are intended to look like laser bolts, and these are exposed on the side so that you can just touch it from the top to shoot those off, one on either side. About the right color, I would say, for the shots, but looks a little bit awkward when it's in there because so much of it is sticking out the back. But here, these are much nicer. These little rotating laser turrets, and they can actually be moved remotely. All of them work together. It's a nice little design that they came up with. You should definitely check out the instructions, the free downloadable instructions for this thing if you're not able to actually get the model. It's back here, just a little lever that allows you to control that on either side, so you can do this independently for the two sides. There's a closer look at the bridge with a single sticker used for this one piece here. Everything else is just built up with brick-built details. They got the shapes done very nicely, including the way that the bottom portions are actually upside down, and they just are angled up. They're hinged up and stay in place pretty well. There's enough friction to keep that whole thing together. Even on the back of the bridge here, you've got studs on the back, but this is another angled in, hinged in piece or assembly back there. All this back here, this is also hinged, interestingly enough. It makes sense that they got the studs on the outside. So many places that they've just maintained studs on the outside for a consistent look. I appreciate that. This actually hinges up though, and that is for a purpose because they've got a couple of these spare shots in there to use with your spring-loaded cannons. It's just a nice little use of what otherwise would have been empty space. Now, a nice thing that works really well with the durability of the build is this mostly hidden handle. I kind of wish that it didn't have the little red axle standing out there. Could have done that in black, but this pulls up, and this is a handle that's right at the center of gravity of the whole thing. So with a single finger, you can pick this whole thing up. Look at just how flat that came up. Didn't lean at all. It's just perfectly at the exact correct spot. And again, it's very, very, very sturdy. That is not gonna fall off. The pieces aren't going to pull apart or anything, and this is great for carrying and also just for kids who want to fly the thing around. It's a lot easier compared to having your hand underneath of it. It's just not as convenient. You don't want to really hold this thing from the sides because the sides are folded up on there, but just being able to do this I think is a really good thing. And while I've got that up, let me show you what this thing looks like from the underside. So all studs on the correct side on the top for this center section, but you see around the edges you've still got studs on the outside for just a little more consistency to the look. So if you got this thing kind of up above, you know, kind of posed up on the top of a of a shelf, or even if you find a way to safely hang it from a ceiling, do keep in mind that it is very heavy and not all just general hooks in ceilings will work. It should go into something solid, not just normal ceiling material. But that is a pretty good look, I have to say. A little flat on the bottom, but that is mostly for being able to just set it down, which is the way it's going to be used for most folks. Let me show you how you get inside this thing. First of all, this whole raised area just raises up, and that includes with it the little cannons on the sides. And turning that upside down, you see it's well enclosed, and these are just your little remote activators here. All this comes off. It's also hinged, but it's locked together. So it's hinged up here, but it has a single hinge down at the bottom, which keeps that from turning, so it's staying at the right angle. Then everything else on the top just hinges open. These just kind of fall down and open up like so. I have to admit, this is not the best look of a thing, having all this open area, and the use of so many red pieces in here is unfortunate. They do that to make it easy to find the parts while building this, the whole model, and having a whole lot of different types of parts mixed together in whatever sorts of bins or piles you're using. But for really the most believable, immersive experience, you kind of want to hide that stuff. Now, for how strong the construction of all this is, there's a good amount of usable interior space, playable interior space. This is kind of replicating the look of the interior of the bridge. Obviously, it's in completely the wrong place, but of course there's not going to be enough room to put minifigures in the real bridge on this thing, but this has plenty of space to set up minifigures doing various things around the edges. You can walk Darth Vader down towards the end to look out the windows, and there's still just plenty of room to put all sorts of folks in here. You can sit one guy down here, set up a stormtrooper over here on guard. There's a lot of stuff that you can do in this space. This guy here has a little panel down there. There's also a matching one on the opposite side. You've got a bunch of stickered panels all the way along here that just represent all sorts of computer displays and such. They're all the same. Back here you can see some different sort of computer texture panels, more just stickered stuff. Just kind of adds to the realism and, again, the immersiveness of just the trench, the trenches beside that major pathway, or I guess the pits would be the better term. And then taking a step back, moving back to here, you have an even larger open space to place your figures in. Not a whole lot to do in that center area, except basically pose and store. You've got another one of those small panels back over here. This center little structure here is something that you can actually use for holding some weapons. So it's got a clip on this side, clip on that side. Good place to use just as a little weapons store, just for your blasters. Got a couple more of those longer panels down the sides. And then on the other side, things get a little bit more interesting. Over here, you've got this major transparent panel with a random coffee mug there, always necessary. Got a little reference to the Death Star there, the Death Star 1. There's a little bit better look to let you see what kind of detail is showing on that thing. But then I think the real star of the interior is this new one-stud holographic Emperor Palpatine. I think this one definitely deserves to be highlighted by itself. Pretty nice little sculpt. And as small as it is, this can actually be held by a minifig. Check out the legs. They actually kind of brought in the shape of Lego minifig legs down there to just make, kind of keep it within the Lego theme properly. No face on this, but they did the hood really well. Such a cool little piece. Something that is familiar to me, I feel like we've seen something like this before. Not from Lego and not from the Star Wars universe, but same sort of deal. So you put him in context, and he's got the little rotating platform, so you can be facing whatever direction you want. I think it looks pretty good down in there. So that's your general overview of the interior. You already saw more of the structure behind the handle and how that's all tied in to really the skeleton of the whole thing. Let's take a look at the minifigs. These are all new setups for 2014 for the summer wave. Darth Vader, obviously, and this one is an Imperial officer, followed by just a general Imperial crew member, 2 of the new Stormtroopers, and 1 Imperial Navy trooper. From what I've seen, the new Stormtroopers have been fairly controversial within the community because mostly they are different, and the nostalgia effect is always in full effect in the LEGO world. When things that have been around for a long time and much loved get changed, it always elicits a negative reaction. I think that newer LEGO collectors who don't have as much of that nostalgia effect will actually appreciate the increased detail of those new helmets and the legs and the finer details on the torsos. Here's a look at all of them from the back, so you can see they all have pretty nice printing. Of course, you can't see it on Vader, but with everything removed, you see they didn't even bother to put a print on the back of Vader's torso because he's always going to be wearing his cape, and I think that makes total sense. Why waste time and energy and a little bit of money printing up something that will never be seen? He does have new print on the head though, so we'll take a closer look at just that in a second, but I do want you to see everything from the front fully exposed. With that tan colored head, he really reminds me of Grima Wormtongue from the Tower of Orthanc. But look at the detailing on the torso. Such fine little bits on there. LEGO just keeps getting finer and finer with the stuff that they print onto parts. I really appreciate that. It makes it feel a little bit less LEGO, a little bit more realistic down there, but still got the good old classic minifig shape and everything. But the interesting thing here mostly is just the head to me. Got a number of different colors used there. All right, that's what he looks like with the hat off. There's his hat on. Yeah, I'm calling it a hat, not a helmet. What are you gonna do about it? And okay, yeah, that's LEGO. That's definitely LEGO there with the really long, very caricature shape. Yes, okay, now we're back in the fun zone. And finally with the cape, there you go, the new Darth Vader. Oh, and let's not forget the mouse droid that's included with this set. I think that it's worth getting this set just for that. Nah, in all seriousness, this is the reason to get this set. The free poster. So there you have it, a very nicely done model for its size. The only things that I didn't like about it are the spring-loaded missiles. They just don't look very good to me, but you can always just leave those out and problem solved. I really think the only major question mark with this one is its size and how that works out for a given possible owner of one. I'm sure that a lot of folks will really appreciate the size of this and like how big it is actually. And I think it makes a very good display model and a reasonable one that can actually be put on some shelves or at least on top of some, bookcases and whatnot. On the flip side, some folks will find this to be too small, especially folks who have actually seen the old Ultimate Collector's Series version in person. But realistically, even the UCS version was nowhere near close to minifig scale. And when you consider that this is designed and created and sold for kids to play with it, you've got your minifigs here, you've got the ability to put them in there. At some point, size just becomes a status symbol. I personally feel they've given us a good compromise in size here, and most importantly, for that size, they have executed this thing very well. So those are my thoughts, but I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about this, especially about the issue of size. If you think it's too small, or maybe even too big, or just right. Thank you in advance for your feedback. Time for me to go build some more stuff so I can bring you some more videos. Stay tuned, because more are on the way.